Hello and welcome to part 13 of the Gauge 1 LMS carriage build, and the finishing line is almost in sight now. We've basically got all the work done to just the finer finishing touches to put onto our carriage now, and one of them, which is probably one of the trickiest parts, is the lining. On these LMS coaches you've got two sets of coach stripes that run along here with a couple of logos, with a logo in the middle for the London Midland Scottish logo and a couple of numbers for the doors. But what we will do first is we'll start to put the coach stripe on, and all we do is just dunk that in some water. After a few minutes these start to detach from the base. This is when we have to carefully lay this on, and unfortunately what I've just seen on this one is it's actually snapped in the middle, so it's not going to come off as one piece, which is a bit of a nuisance. So I'll have to do it in two bits. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just a bit more of a fiddle, that's all. These stripes, these linings, they're quite delicate, so you have to be particularly careful with them. Just slowly holding that down while this slides off. You've got quite a few minutes to get these right, and what I've done, I've set a depth of where these are going to sit, so I can stand a reasonable chance of getting these straight. This one just wants to pull along a little bit to the edge, like so. I did think lining was going to be quite difficult, but it's not proving to be too bad. A little bit of water, get some lubrication on here, just ease that down slightly. So you put some water on. You've got several minutes to manoeuvre these into position before they dry, and equally is not to put too much water on, because there is a sort of slight adhesive under these, which if you put too much water on they will lose their stick. That one's easing down a tad more. I'm just using the edge of the hairs on this brush just to ease them down. The last thing you need to do, that I've found, if you touch them with your fingers, they will stick to your fingers and you will never get them off. And while that one is starting to dry, I'll quickly get this one into position as well. A bit of a nuisance, it's actually snapped. So it's not a deal breaker, just means I've got to work two pieces rather than one. So position this one roughly in place, and I hope you'll agree that once these carriage lining stripes are on, it certainly makes a difference and starts to add a little bit more realism as well. But we need to take some time just to make sure these are straight. I'm just using my measuring device as a depth gauge, taking sample readings along here just to line them up, get them straight. I was worried initially that it could be a bit of a struggle to get a line straight. A line straight and parallel running along. So there's two sets of stripes. There's one that runs in the middle of the bodywork, and that has moved a little bit. We need to pull that along a tad more, not quite going to the end. And do not touch them with your fingers. I've got to do it in at least two sections. As you can see, the coach is almost 22 inches in length, and there's no way can you buy water slide transfers of that length. But that's looking alright. Alright, we're on the last of the water slide transfers to go on now. We've done all the lining on the coaches. This is the last one to do, and this is the London Midland Scottish Railway logo just going into position. So after several hours, done all the lining. There's all the lining done now on the 3 carriages, so I shall let this final one dry. Usually takes a good 24 hours before it's really safe to handle, but what we will do is we'll put a protective coat of varnish on that once that's finally dried. We're coming to the end stages now of the build, and one of the things we need to think about now are these connectors for the corridor connectors from each coach to the other. I'm very grateful to an article in one of the journals when someone showed how to make this, and what I did, I went a little bit further and drew it all out and scored the lines and everything for it. And basically how it works is this is basically a template here with all the lines marked out. So what we do, we'd first of all cut a piece out like this, and what you would do is you'd score along each of these lines very carefully. You'd score every line like so, and once you've scored them, you would then fold them in alternate directions. It's quite an intricate piece of paper folding really, and then fold them here, and you put a fold on here, and you'd fold all these bits. So you put a fold on everything, and what you'd eventually get is something that looks like this. Little concertina. And by folding them alternately, say as I mentioned before, by putting alternate folds in here, you actually get a shape like this that roughly resembles a bit of like a concertina shape, and it'll give you something that, let's say, looks close, looks reasonable for a corridor connection. So once we've got these folded like so, next thing we do is we fix them between 2 end pieces, and now you start to get the effect of what this looks like. And I don't think they look too bad. That will give the effect of a corridor connection between the coaches. So if we've taken our folded corridor connection, and as you see, it will fit on there, and that will be painted up in a matte black. And I don't think that looks too bad. I think that gives the effect of the corridor connection. So I'm quite grateful for finding this article in the Gauge 1 journal. That was very useful. Okay, you join me as I'm just fitting the last the little hinge effects that we made. You might remember several episodes ago we made some hinges just to give some extra detail finish on the doors, as all these carriages have quite visible hinges, and on this scale it's worth putting them on because you'll actually see them. So this is the last of the hinges just going into the slot that we made. So we made the slots several episodes ago, so these are now ready to go in. Little tap, And just make sure these are lined up, because on the real thing these hinges would be in a line for the door to open properly. So that looks okay. So that's the hinges complete on all the 3 carriages now. What I have got to fit next are the door handles, and I shall do those at a later stage. So if you look at the carriage now, you notice a lot of water stains and marks on, especially when you see it on gloss paint. You see a lot of water stains and marks, and a lot of these marks have come from the transfers. The transfers have a slight adhesive on them, and obviously you're using water to put these transfers on, so when everything dries off you tend to get these water stains, but that's okay. So what we shall do is give the carriages a good clean and get rid of all these water stains, ready for their final protective coat.